welcome back to
Raw.
All right, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Amy.
All right, so today we're actually going to dive into a topic that, like, for many is a forbidden fruit topic, but it shouldn't be, and it's the libido. And it's a big one for women because, society, cultural, all the type of reading material that we talk about usually talks about men's libido, and in men's libido being higher and women's libido being lower, and that's not the case. So we're actually here to demystify all the things that are out there, but also to recognize that this is an important topic of conversation. As a psychotherapist specializing in sex and couples, I hear it all the time. My libido is higher, my partner's is lower, or vice versa. And here's the thing, Amy, there's no such thing as normal when it comes to your libido. No such thing as normal. I need to emphasize this because this is something that comes into play all the time. I don't feel normal. What's wrong with me? And that's not the case at all. So today, while you and I explore the libido on, I guess, a holistic approach of looking at it from both a couple and an individual perspective, I want to emphasize that, we're all different. We're all different. Age, stage, time, place, mental health, physical health, it all comes into place for the libido. So today, Aim, do you want to add any topics of conversation for this?
Yeah, definitely. I think that where you're at in your life and how you're showing up and how you treat your body definitely has a role in that. And also how you feel about yourself, right? Because if you're someone who's like waking up every day and you're just feeling really low and just not feeling confident in your body, that is definitely going to have an impact on your libido and how you're showing up for yourself and for your partner if you are in a relationship. Right. So the health component is a huge factor here into how your libido, how you feel.
100%. So let's take a step back and say, what is the libido? Okay. The libido is the desire, the need, the biological, and also the psychological need for intimacy, whether it be intercourse, whether it be oral, whether it be anything of the sort where pleasure and orgasm takes place. So that's actually what we're really wanting to talk about, right? Okay. Is how do we achieve something that's important, that's actually natural and animalistic within our own primitive self, from a perspective of by ourselves or with a partner. And the libido can change over time. So, when we talk about the libido, it's really about your own individual experience and exploration about how to get there. And the thing is that, yes, if we look at it from a problem and a solution perspective, which we often do, is that, you may be in a relationship with someone where your libido is lower or their libido is lower or vice versa, right? One's higher, one's lower, depending on. And it's really about how to work together to achieve desire and pleasure and not feel guilty or shamed about that. So that's huge.
Absolutely.
And then I also want to talk about, Amy, you touched on a really important point, which is health. And waking up and feeling, good one day, bad another. And so from actually your perspective, I'd love to hear how exercise comes into the libido.
Absolutely. Yeah. So definitely driving up all those good feeling hormones in the body, the more you move, right? So you've got your serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine hits. So those are all the healthy hormones that are being produced in the body when you're active. So the more active you are, the higher the libido for male and female. Okay. And also, you want to be mindful about what you're putting into your body, because our gut also is going to impact how we're feeling overall, right? That overall, like the gut health and related to our brains and how that all works together. So I think that obviously the more healthy you are and being mindful about what you're putting in your body will impact that. And now if you're in a relationship where you're active, but your partner is inactive, right? So you feel this imbalance of your libido. Like it could maybe, put me in that playbook, for example. I'm highly active. This is my lifestyle and my partner isn't. So if there's a misalignment there, I think that the only really true way to make that work is to communicate, right? So the partner would have to be open. Like, say I'm not being fulfilled in a certain way with intimate, like in the intimacy side of things or sexually. I would have to approach my partner and be like, hey, you know what? I'm feeling this way. Yeah. Are you willing to work with me on this? I mean, hopefully they'll be running and willing and totally open to do it. I mean,
you have a partner who's like,
no, yeah, yeah, bounce. I'm out.
Sorry,
yeah, exactly.
Sorry, not interested.
No, thank you.
You know what, Abe? You touched on a really good point. So, two things I want to add to that is the communication. By and large, probably one of the most important things. Okay, and then the other thing that people don't understand is if you don't use it, you lose it. So whether you do it by yourself with this masturbation or toys or accessories, however you want, that's fine. Or you with a partner. But if you don't use it, you lose it. And that's part of the communication part with your partner or even by yourself. But, you know, how do you have that hard conversation with your partner to say, to Amy's point, right? Okay, I'm active, you're not. How do we find the middle ground to make us both satisfied and pleasured within our intimate relationship?
Well, I think if both parties want it to work and you're wanting to see your partner happy, and if that's like, say, one of their love languages, like physical, you know, physical touch or like that intimacy component. I mean, speaking for myself, it is a very important element for me in my relationships as well, right? That, especially that like emotional connection with your, with a partner. So you need to communicate that. And if someone's shutting you down constantly on that, like they're not willing to meet you halfway and like fulfill your needs, right? Because it's like, if you're expressing, hey, like, you know, you're knocking on that door, like, this is what I need. You got to be patient. It might be several conversations. It may not be resolved in just one conversation. And I understand that these conversations are very hard to have. Right? They are. Like, they're difficult.
Well, and you touch on love languages, which is huge. And that's a whole other podcast in itself, is love languages. But the reality is, you know, people do need touch. They need physical connection, intimacy. And here's the thing. Men and women, they are different. Okay. Men are very visual creatures. Okay. That drives their libido. If they see something visually through their eyes, their libido can skyrocket within seconds. Women tend to not buy, like, I'm generalizing here, but it's kind of true. There's a lot of truth to it. Women, they need to be a little bit more, you know, caressed and brought to that place of desire where their libido increases through more emotional connection. And obviously there are men who need emotional connection first, and women who, you know, have a higher, you know, visual cue where they become satiated through visuals. But by and large, men and women do operate differently. So that libido, right, sometimes needs a little bit of revving, right, to get it going through touch or through emotional connection.
Absolutely. Even like things like foreplay or just having fun and like exploring different areas to help see, like, if you're unsure about, you know, oh, what is it that gets me excited? Explore, just have fun with it, right? Go to a sex shop and like go see what they have available and like pick up a few things
100%
and just explore, right? Just be open. I think that is the most important thing.
The one thing I do want to actually note though is Asian stage. Okay, so we all know that we're no spring chickens. I'm just going to be honest. It's be like, sorry, we're not spring chickens. But here's the thing. As we get older, our body changes. There's a lot of biological things that take place. There's a lot of psychological and social things that take place that also can hinder our libidos. So keeping that in mind, if you need to check your hormones, or there could be even erectile dysfunction or anything that needs to be medically looked at from a doctor, that's huge and important, right? To understand, as women, our libidos decrease at a certain age, they increase. We have dryness in the vagina, there's thinning of the lining. There's a lot of things that take place that hinder. And I don't want there to be shame or guilt around these things, right? And so there's also a lot of other ways that we can satisfy our libidos or our partner's libidos that, you know, could be adventurous and exploratory as well.
For sure. And I think that like when it comes to just sex overall and libido, like it's there aren't really no limits. Like if you have a limitation, you can obviously say that to your partner, like, I'm not comfortable in XYZ position or whatever. But again, just why not have fun? Like, it's a sense of developing this close bond with a partner. They're all good feels that you get out of it in the moment. And
All
like,
good feels.
right? It's all good
All
feels.
good feels.
So like embrace,
all good feels. That's what we call all good
embrace
feels.
it, like surrender to it and just have fun.
I'm taking her words. Surrender.
Yes. Yeah.
And she's right, actually. The reality is the more you own of yourself and your body and you feel more comfortable within yourself, the more you can relax and your libido actually will increase. And that's something that, I work with on clients. I'd love to hear what you do with your clients, but I work with on clients to recognize there's no shame, there's no guilt in having, an ebb and flow of libidos, and to have a different sense of your partner as well. If you have higher or lower and your partner has higher or lower, right? There's communication that needs to be there's communication that has to take place. And I work with, individuals and couples on that. But also to understand, right, what are our accelerators and our brakes within the libido of gets us going and makes us stop. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of things that, communication, if we go back to it, the essence of communication is huge. So that's what I tend to do. And having those open conversations with your partner or even yourself is highly, highly important. And that's from, a therapeutic perspective that touches on the psychological. Obviously, the biological, you can seek medical attention for that. Mm-hmm. But from a psychological and a social perspective, I work with clients on that. How do you work with clients to increase libido or to understand it?
Yeah, so it would be more of like, it's one of the benefits of the services that I provide, but I'm not going into workout sessions saying, hey, you're going to have good fucking sex tonight. You know what I mean?
But everybody wants that.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody wants that.
They do. So what happens is, as we start to show up as a better version of ourselves, and that's literally mentally, physically, spiritually.
Love that.
Then everything else is going to just elevate, right? Every part of you. And you're going to start feeling like, oh, I have these, these little feels going on down there, because you're more aware and in tune with your body. And a big part of this.
Can we talk about the special feels? Like Kegel exercises or something? Can we come back to that?
Yeah, we're going to come back to it. Okay. Now I'm like, my train of thought. Okay. So
I got excited about
Yes. No, that's okay. That's okay. So yeah, I mean, basically just all, when you start to become more healthy, I think a big part of it too, this is the point I was going to make about stress. So sometimes, like, what I always encourage my clients is like, let's just like slow down and be present in the moment, right? Like, just like you want to feel what you're doing when you're in your workout, you want to just be aware overall, because when we slow down and we're less stressed, that's again when we're becoming healthier, and again you can actually start to feel those feels.
I like the feels.
Okay. So we like the feels, and you don't even have to do a Kegel. It's just almost like you can feel your uterus.
I'm starting to do Kegels right now.
Okay, there you go. See, that's the beauty about Kegels. You can do them, and no one knows that you're doing them. Yeah, exactly.
No one knows.
However, I will say you need to do. There's actually the 3-part. I like to break down like the whole lower abdominal Kegel, and like even like door number 2 hole too. Okay. So this is what I'm going to say about that. Door number two. So we have, if you're doing Kegel exercises through the front, what I like to tell people to do is start in your vagina. Then you're going to move to your butt and try to squeeze your butthole. And then you want to try to
know what hole I'm working on right now.
And then you need to try to connect both. And honestly, you can intensify your orgasms this way, by just having that control.
Okay.
Right.
And I love all that. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love everything Amy's talking about, because it's really about understanding your body. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the work that we do together, is that, we understand your body holistically from a psychological, but also from a physical perspective. And the two really do need to be aligned in some way, shape, or form. And I love that you touched on stress and being mindful, because when our libido starts, or there's a lack of libido, it's trying to be mindful of what's actually happening in your body and being present. And you're absolutely right about that. So
yeah, for sure.
I do think that in this topic of conversation, there's a whole lot of sub conversations that we should probably do some podcasting on. So what I would actually suggest is, if anybody out there has any questions, to sort of send them in or touch base with us, and we can do an episode on that.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're always open to feedback and topic suggestions, and we're happy to dive right in. So in terms of Let's kind of circle back to ways that people can say there's a misalignment in a relationship. I think this is important, and like we can help kind of couples navigate through these hard times, right? So say a couple comes in to you and they're like, I've got this misalignment, but this is an important piece for me and my partner. It isn't an important piece for them.
Right.
What do we do? Like, what do you say in that situation?
So thanks. That's actually a great question. I get it all the time. So the reality is that every couple's different and every individual is different. So we break it down based on an individual perspective, but plus a couple's perspective. And we start by understanding the why, right? So above everything and anything, there's always a why. So why, what's happening with your libido? What do you need? Why do you need that? What is the satiation that you need to satisfy at that point? And then we try and understand from a libido perspective how to satisfy those. So oftentimes I work in what's called my traffic light perspective and it's a way to communicate and people are more comfortable with it, where we talk about green light, yellow light, and red lights. So your green lights are your goes, your red lights are your hard nose, and then your yellow lights are the exploratory. But recognizing that it's not an element of rejection when a partner says no, from a libido perspective, it's just different. And so having that open communication is super, super important. So that's what we work on. We work on understanding, right? I may love you, but I may not physically or psychologically be at the same level as you, but how do we satisfy your needs that you need as well, right? And how do we carve out that special time to satisfy that? And if you don't have a partner and your libido, right? I do work with people who have porn addiction or sex addiction, and or trauma that has hindered a libido. So there's all these different variations that can come into play. So really trying to break it down and understand those intimate conversations are hard to have, but they're super important.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. It sounds like there's so many layers there, right? And it is going to be different for every couple, yes. And then like what they're bringing from their past into that relationship.
100%.
But I think, focusing on the present and the here and the now in your relationship will be helpful to you, and kind of letting go of that past stuff or working through it, healing, because you don't want to kind of just keep adding on like heavy bricks and then carrying that forward, right? You want to be able just to offload and then just get back on track with your partner if it's important to you.
That you work on, right? You work on sort of the mental, turning it into the physical on the outside, right? Mm-hmm. And the more we feel good on the inside, we feel good on the outside. The more we feel good on the outside, we feel on the inside.
Absolutely.
So it actually works in tandem.
Mm-hmm.
So where the work that you do, right, working on that physicality, working on that feeling good, showing up and being present in your body is super, super important for your libido, because then you can own it.
Absolutely.
Right? You can own it either way.
For sure. Like think about how you feel after you finish a workout. You feel pumped. Like guys usually will go do a workout before they have a hot date, and they're like showing up also like swole and like, they look hot.
Sex is a really good workout.
Yeah, totally. And that too. Exactly. For sure. Yeah. I don't think I've ever tracked it on my watch as a workout, but now maybe that's something I'm going to do. But yeah, definitely. I think, feeling good in your skin, right, it just makes a huge difference, right? If you don't like how you look in the mirror, you're going to be very uncomfortable being naked in front of your partner, and actually like be willing to let go and be in that moment, right?
And that's a great point, because that psychologically can affect your libido, believe it or not, right? When you don't feel pride or good or comfortable in your own skin, then the signals that go from the brain to the vagina and the vulva or the penis and the testicles and all the anatomy, right, that starts to rev up, it doesn't happen because you don't feel good starting up here looking at what you see.
Exactly.
So that's super important.
And even like, speaking for myself here, and like, there have been times in the past where, say I was going through a hard time or something, and I felt emotionally really drained and stressed. I could tell right away my libido was like, 100%. It just really plummeted.
Yeah.
But whereas when I'm happy and like I'm feeling really good and I love how like I'm looking and I just like everything's like,
you want to get your freak on?
I'm like, yeah, let's go, baby. Like every day,
you want to get your freak on.
Like it's just let's go.
I get it.
Yeah.
So, and you're right, 100%. Stress, anxiety, depression, medication, all of those things have an effect on your libido. Okay. So being mindful of that is super important. But here's the thing. We live in a very beautiful world where we can give and receive pleasure. And our libido is the first part for that. That's our signal. And so how do we have that and increase that so we have great pleasure in our day-to-day, in our lives, individually and with a partner? And that's something that, each individual needs to stop the clock and ask themselves.
For sure. Yeah. And I think it starts with, again, reflecting, looking inward and being like, okay, how can I level up here? Right. So it's like, okay, do I need to incorporate more exercise? Do I need to get my nutrition on point? Because if your nutrition is not on point, first of all, your gut health, everything about you is going to be low vibing, right? Yeah. You want to attract that high vibration. And honestly, the microbiome is how you do that. That's through gut health.
100%.
Okay. So when you meet someone and you're like, wow, like I'm vibing with this person, it's because your microbiome is literally speaking to the other person. And you're like, whoop, connecting. Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to go through my head next time. I'm going to be like, whoop, we're connected. She got great sounds. I love it.
Yeah, I know. The sound effects. Yeah.
Whoop, we're connected. Okay, that's amazing. All right. For today, we just wanted to have some sense of a harder conversation that people might not be comfortable or vulnerable at this point in time to discuss. The libido is one of those, as I said in the beginning, forbidden fruit topics that people sort of are a bit shy. There's guilt, there's shame, there's, am I normal? Yes, you're 100% normal.
Can I interject and ask you a question? Do you know any stats on what is the average amount that someone, like say someone masturbates per week? Like, is there an average number? And also for couples, how often does a healthy couple have sex per week? Do you know those?
Yeah, let me tell you something. Okay. There's no fucking such thing as an actual stat. And I love when people are like, how many times should I have sex? No, fuck that shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Fuck that shit.
Right.
The reality is there's no stat that because every couple is different and every couple, sets that out. Every couple and individual creates their own boundaries around that and creates their own normal. So to ask the question of what's the average? Yeah, sure. You can take statistics that are out there and then you can bring it back even in my practice and we'll demystify it because people will be like, that can't be true. That is, and it isn't, right? You're asking a sample population who are probably trying to find some way to answer so they feel good, right? And it's not true. So the reality is there is no number of times a week you should be masturbating. There is no number of times a week you should be having sex, right? And again, age and stage, life situations, it all comes into play. Your point about, when you're having those harder times, you're not really there present.
Right.
So we show up for our partner, we show up for ourselves in other ways. Okay. And we accept that and we work through it. And then, hopefully we get back to having a higher sex drive or a libido at that point in time. But there is no such thing as a perfect stat or what you should and shouldn't be doing or what you should be following. So bullshit on that and drive on because only you know what's right for you.
Okay. Yeah, that's very fair and valid. And exactly whatever feels right. If it's, you just go with how you feel. I do want to say one thing, circling back to the point about if you don't use it, you lose it. So a stat recently, I was having a conversation with someone and they shared that there's substantial research backing this, that if you masturbate, this is for men, if you masturbate 21 times per month, you have a much less risk of getting prostate cancer versus say say you did it 7 times a month. So there are a lot of different research to back this, but again, if you use it, there's a lot of health benefits behind that as well, right?
Yes, there is a lot of health benefits, even from, feeling good, from a health perspective, like you said, of prostate cancer, for men particularly, right? Making sure that the genitals are continuing to flow with sperm and ejaculation, and then different nitrates that come through, right? From a male perspective. And that's a whole other conversation, right? The libido is one, right? But then the health benefits from actually having sex or masturbation is a completely different topic. But focusing on the libido, right? Recognizing that we listen to our bodies, okay? And then we understand what's happening. And the more intuitive we are with ourselves, the better off we'll be.
Love that. Yep. Really good.
All right. Well, for today, thank you for watching Raw. And hopefully you gleaned some information about libido and recognizing that there's no such thing as normal, and that you can, work to increase or understand it from an individual perspective, from a partner perspective, both from a psychological and a fitness element.
For sure. And also, if you're a couple who is struggling to kind of find that alignment, definitely seek out some sort of therapy, which can help you guys to communicate. If you're having issues communicating on your own, I think that's a great outlet. And also if you're kind of, maybe this was a push for you to get on your health regime and just take things up to the next level. So I hope that you've come out of this episode with that awareness, and happy fucking, everybody.
And I'm going to practice my Kegels because no one will know. I'm going to practice my Kegels. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Peace.
Bye.